الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We continue to talk about the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, which discusses the topic of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Yesterday we stopped at the concept that in a Muslim community, if some people are committing an evil and they are little in number, while the majority of the community can stop them and they neglected to stop them, that is when the community would be deserving for punishment from Allah collectively for everybody. And we read multiple hadith. ما من قوم يعمل فيهم بالمعاصي هم أعز وأكثر ممن يعملوا فلم يغيروه إلا عمهم الله بعقاب. Multiple hadiths talk about this. If a person sees something that is evil and he feels he would be harmed if he tries to change it, then he is excused and he can detest and hate the evil from inside and avoid that place and not join or participate in any way. We will read some hadith that indicate this, but also there's a hadith that is in Sahih ibn Hibban عن أبي سعيد الخدري أيضا قال سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الله لا يسأل العبد يوم القيامة حتى يقول ما منعك إذ رأيت المنكر أن تنكره فإذا لقن الله عبدا حجته قال يا رب رجوتك وفرقت من الناس. The meaning is that Allah will question his slave on the day of judgment until he will ask him, when you saw the evil, what prevented you from forbidding that evil or changing it? The hadith says, if Allah allows this slave of his to give the right answer, then the slave would say, "O Allah, I was hopeful in your mercy and I was afraid of the people." But if the fear is questionable, if there's no, if it's more likely that nothing will happen to that person, then he should, if it's just some kind of verbal abuse, then he should give the advice at least. And there's a hadith that indicate this as well. So the hadith that talk about giving an excuse not to change the evil or forbid it verbally, those hadith talk about if somebody feels that it's most likely and most probable that he will be harmed somehow, physically or financially, or one of his family would be harmed somehow, then he is excused. But if it's just some verbal, abuse that he may hear or something, or somebody will tell him to shut up or something, that is something he can endure, and he should try to give the advice now. And there's also hadith, also Sahih ibn Hibban, in which also narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال في خطبته ألا لا يمنعن رجلا هيبة الناس أن يقول بحق إذا علم. The meaning is that the fear of people should not prevent you from saying the truth that you know. وبكى أبو سعيد. Abu Sa'id, when he narrated this hadith, he cried and he says, وقال قد والله رأينا أشياء فهدنا. He says, unfortunately, we did not apply this hadith like we should. We saw many things that we should have changed or said something, and we were too afraid. وخرج الإمام أحمد. Also Imam Ahmad narrated this same hadith وزاد فيه فإنه لا يقرب من أجل ولا يباعد من رزق أن يقال بحق أو يذكر بعظيم. The meaning is that if you say the truth or remind people of Allah, this will not shorten your life or diminish your provision, your rizq. نعم. قال سعيد بن جبير قلت لابن عباس آمر السلطان بالمعروف وأنهاه عن المنكر قال إن خفت أن يقتلك فلا ثم عدت فقال لي مثل ذلك ثم عدت فقال لي مثل ذلك وقال إن كنت لابد فاعلا ففيما بينك وبينه. سعيد بن جبير, one of the tabi'een, his name is Sa'id ibn Jubayr, he went to Sahabi ibn Abbas and he said to him, should I go and give advice to the ruler, Sultan, and forbid him from his evil? Ibn Abbas said to him, if you fear that he will kill you, just don't do it. Do not do so. Then he went back to him and said again, should I do this, go to the ruler and forbid evil and enjoin good on him, or advise him to do the good? He says, he gave him the same answer. 3 times he went back and every time he gives him the same answer. Then he says, if you insist on doing it, then do it between you and him. Just like the hadith, خير الشهداء حمزة ورجل قام إلى السلطان الجائر فأمره ونهاه فقتله. If somebody does something like this, he is rewarded. But is it obligatory? That's the thing. Ibn Abbas is giving him the excuse. He says, you don't have to do it. But if he decides to go and do it, that's a much higher level by choice. It's something optional, and he would be rewarded for it. Actually, Sa'id ibn Jubayr did that with Hajjaj, and he actually killed him. He actually killed him eventually. شوف كده الحوار اللي حصل بين الحجاج وسعيد بن جبير, ممكن نقرأه على الناس. He says, نعم إن خشي في الإقدام على الإنكار على الملوك أن يؤذي أهله أو جيرانه لم ينبغي له التعرض لهم حينئذ. If he feels that the harm will also extend to the family or to neighbors, then they can be left alone. You don't have to go and try to change the evil or give them the advice. قال الفضيل بن عياض وغيره ومع هذا متى خاف على نفسه السيف أو الصوت أو الحبس أو القيد أو النفي أو أخذ المال أو نحو ذلك من الأذى سقط أمرهم ونهيهم. If you fear, if there's a risk of getting killed or getting tortured or jailed or banished from the land or your wealth and provision taken from you, then saqata means it's not obligatory. But not obligatory does not mean that it's not permissible. It could be permissible and encouraged even if he feels he has the strength of Iman to allow him to persevere. Because we will read a hadith on this matter as well. But if he is in doubt of his perseverance and level of Iman, he should not put himself in a situation. I would hope to read this for you, the conversation between Hajjaj and Sa'id ibn Jubayr.
عفوا إذا كانوا يخافون أحسن أن يسكتوا مثلا
طبعا
الدول الإسلامية الآن إذا هم يتكلمون مباشرة طوالي
طبعا يعني يسكت ويسكت ويدعو عليهم يعني يعمل ايه؟
بالسر.
طبعا ما فيش قدرة يعني.
لكن الآن امتلأت السجون
طبعا. He's saying يعني in many Muslim countries this is happening. The moment you say anything, you're thrown in jail.
Even comment.
Yes, even if you put something on Twitter, they will
just to comment.
Yes, and in that case, it is best to avoid, and just Allah is there, and we can make dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of them sooner or later. Ameen. فإن خاف السب أو سماع الكلام السيء لم يسقط عنه الإنكار. If it's only verbal abuse, no, it is still wajib to, especially if the munkar is obvious and clear and being performed in public. Now, وإن احتمل الأذى, this is what I meant, وقوي عليه فهو أفضل. If he has strength of Iman to go through this trial, it is best for him to do it, because if he does it, then he becomes a role model for other Muslims, and he affirms what is right, so that people don't think that what is happening is correct. Imam Ahmad did the same actually in when they wanted, it's something called fitnat khalq al-Quran. They wanted people to say about the Quran something that is not true. That it is not actually the word of Allah, but it is a creation of Allah, something like that. Something philosophical, but it is the word of Allah according to the Nas al-Quran, according to the text of Quran. So he refused. And some scholars, eminent scholars, they actually either stayed quiet or they actually said, just to save themselves. And then Imam Ahmad was being advised by some of them, you also stay quiet, just save yourself, save yourself. And then he was at that time in jail, so people were giving him advice. So because they were also bringing him out and lashing him and whipping him. And then he told them, what do you see out of this window? And he saw the masses of the people, many people. He says, if I comply to what they're doing, what they're saying, and say what they want me to say, then who will teach all these people? They will think that this is a correct. And he endured, and the torture, and alhamdulillah, eventually he was triumphant. Now, there's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, ليس المؤمن أن يذل نفسه، يعني يعرضها من البلاء ما لا طاقة له به. That a mu'min should not put himself under severe oppression that he would not be able to bear, or withstand. And that is, but if he thinks that he can withstand it, that's a different story. Now, لا ينبغي للمؤمن أن يذل نفسه، فإنما يدل على أنه إذا علم أنه لا يطيق الأذى ولا يصبر عليه فإنه لا يتعرض حينئذ للأمراء. وهذا حق، وإنما الكلام في من علم من نفسه الصبر. لذلك قاله الأئمة كسفيان وأحمد والفضيل ما يرضى غيره. نعم. There's another hadith on this matter as well في سنن أبي داود والترمذي وابن ماجه عن أبي ثعلبة الخشني أنه قيل له كيف تقول في هذه الآية عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم؟ قال سألت عنها خبيرة، أما والله لقد سألت عنها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال بل ائتمروا بالمعروف وتناهوا عن المنكر حتى إذا رأيت شحا مطاعا وهوى متبعا ودنيا مؤثرة وإعجاب كل ذي رأي برأيه فعليك بنفسك ودع عنك أمر العوام. صححه ابن حبان. The ayah that says look after yourself or keep to yourself عليكم أنفسكم, you would not be harmed by the لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. You will not be harmed by the evil or by the deviation or the deviant ways of those people who have gone astray, as long as you are on the straight path. This is ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah number 105. This question was asked to a Sahabi, his name is Abu Sa'lab al-Khushani. He says, you have asked somebody who knows the answer to this question. Because I did ask the Prophet ﷺ about this verse, and he says, enjoin good and forbid evil until, and he mentioned certain situations or certain conditions where it's no longer beneficial to give people advice. Shuhan muta'an, which means people are just following their stinginess and their desires. They're engulfed in desires and selfishness. وَدُنْيَا مُؤْثَرَةً, and people are only fond of the dunya. There's no inclination to the akhirah whatsoever. وَأَجَابُ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ, and everybody is fond of his own opinion. Doesn't want to listen to anybody else's opinion. This is quite similar to what we see today. He says, then keep to yourself and let alone of the masses, or you're not responsible for them. Another hadith also, بينما نحن جلوس حول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذ ذكر الفتنة فقال إذا رأيتم الناس مرجت عهودهم وخفت أماناتهم وكانوا هكذا وشبك أصابعه فقمت إليه فقلت له كيف أفعل عند ذلك؟ قال جعلني في الله فداك. فقال إلزم بيتك وأملك عليك لسانك وخذ بما تعرف ودع ما تنكر وعليك بأمر خاصة نفسك ودع عنك أمر العامة. Similar kind of thing, similar meaning, which means that when the evil becomes rampant, and things become so confusing, then you keep to yourself, you remain in your house, keep to yourself. You don't have to give advice to people who will not listen. You follow what you know and avoid what is evil, and keep to yourself and leave people alone. So this is the meaning of this ayah. And this is also Ibn Mas'ud said the same: إذا اختلفت القلوب والأهواء ولبستم شيعا وذاق بعضكم بأس بعض فيأمر الإنسان حينئذ نفسه فهو حينئذ تأويل هذه الآية. Same kind of thing. People following desires, people are divided into groups, and there's so much conflict and internal strife. Then a person should advise his own self. Ibn Umar said about this same ayah: هذه الآية لأقوام يجيئون من بعدنا إن قالوا لم يقبل منهم. The meaning is that this verse talks about people who will come after us. He's talking, Ibn Umar is talking to his Sahaba. He says this verse applies to people who will come after us. Even if they give advice, nobody will listen to them.
It wasn't referring to Tabi'in.
What?
And Tabi'in. Maybe our generation.
Yeah, no, he was not. No, he was not. Several generations later, he wasn't talking about. He says it's just it hasn't happened yet. So this verse is not to be applied on the Sahaba, because at that time people who did evil were odd, while most people were following the right path. Right? Then definitely they have to command what is good and forbid what is evil. Okay.
So if someone can endure,
Yes.
so what happened to the family if eventually he's put into jail and the wife and the children will suffer?
Yes. No. Then also because then the harm is not limited to him. If the harm is limited to him, he can, and he knows he can endure. But if he feels, let's say somebody doesn't even have a wife or children, or has secured them, or they're in a different country, and he knows that he is the only one, and he plans to go ahead with this kind of a task to support the deen and strengthen the Islam and Muslims, he can do that. Now, we'll stop here. Inshallah, maybe next time we can read. It's a nice, very nice and strong conversation between Sayyid ibn Jubair and Hajjaj. Who? Huh? People might get angry with me. It's very nice, and it's nice to comment on it. خلاص نخليها المرة الجاية إن شاء الله. Munir, find the solution for Isha. It's too early, and by the time, wallahi, I can't make it for 7.
We'll push it to 8, inshallah, effective from next week.
You come from work, you just have dinner, and then suddenly Isha is here.
Hopefully.